Howdy folks, Ruben here. Hey, I've been wanting to shoot this video for a while, and I know the title on here was kind of clickbaity, but there's a good point behind it. And what I intend to do in this video is, you're gonna have to bear with me. The first few minutes is gonna be a little bit of a rant about panel clamps and some of the many different options out there. And since I glue up a lot of panels, over the past year or so, I found different things that work for me and don't work for me. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna go over something that I came up with a couple weeks ago that I've tried a few times. It seems to be the best solution on the cheap to glue up panels. Many different ways of skinning that cat. You'll find out there different manufacturers, whether it's Woodpeckers, I think some of the Woodcraft brands, I forget the name of them anyways. But anyways, there are a few different ones out there. The ones that I actually have here that I've tried before are these right here, which are the Damstom, I think that's what they're called, panel clamps. They're 30 something inches. I've had them for probably about a year now, and I've tried them a few times, and I really wanted to like them, but when it all comes down to it, I don't like them and I don't use them anymore. And a couple different reasons that I'll go over here in a second. You can see one of them's actually bent now because I tried to use it for a couple things, but actually I'll go ahead and hit that right now. The reason I don't like these is how they're intended to be used is your two different rails. One of them obviously goes on the bottom, and you've got the screw clamp on the end right here that applies the pressure. The issue is these do not generate any type of downward flattening force on your panels because all of the pressure that is generated is lateral. So there's nothing. So either when you're getting ready to glue something up, you've either got to put clamps on here to press them down to press your panel flat, or just let them be and not let them stretch any further. The rails are quite flimsy, and I can actually squeeze them together with my hand here. And you can kind of see on this rail right here where I've tried to clamp it before and it's bent in the middle. So they're not very strong here. So if you're trying to clamp down on these prior to screwing them together to bring the panel together, then you're gonna run into issues, and then your clamp's gonna bend out of shape. Another issue is I use pipe clamps when I glue up panels for especially thick stuff, because you can generate a lot of pressure with these and get maximum glue squeeze out and a nice tight seam. The issue with this is when I clamp something out, there's at least this much right here that's sticking out off the end of the board. So these Damstom clamps are 60 bucks for one clamp. So two clamps right here is 120 bucks. If I'm setting one of these up on the end of a clamp, say a board right here, how I have it set, and then just to align the panel, and then I put a clamp right here with this actually retracted. The issue I run into, I try to get this up next to it to squeeze that together and then move these to another section of the panel. Then now I'm running into interference here where my pipe clamps are hitting that, so I can't operate it. So that's another issue there too. Also another issue, if I'm gluing a clamp, this end bar right here, say if I bring this down to its thinnest setting, and mind you, these can only go small enough to just over 3/4 of an inch. So if you're gluing any panel that is under a hair over 3/4 of an inch, these will not work. They do not go down far enough. So point in case right here. So right here, that distance right there. So when these are set up, if you're gluing a panel, now you've got this bar sticking out on the bottom. You would have to have your workpiece either elevated off the table a significant amount to be able to have this sit parallel, or hanging off the end right here, which sometimes just doesn't work. So I'm gonna get these out of the way and get on to my next point. So just real quick, there's many different options out there, whether you use pipe clamps or even large bar clamps to actually glue up panels for different projects. There's different ones out there. Woodpeckers, they're getting ready to do one, which are aluminum flat bar sets. But depending on a 24 or 36 inch, one of them is 90 or 100 bucks for a 24 or 36 inch. I'm not spending that much on one. It might be a great thing, but that's just too expensive. Many different options. Some people use cauls. Cauls are actually intended to have a slightly curved surface, so when they're pressed down on two ends, they apply force in the middle because it's naturally going to want to squeeze together. Now, across a glued panel, not necessarily a good option because you're going to get glue everywhere and you're going to ruin your calls unless you tape off or put something in between them. Plus, I'm in Georgia, humidity is always a problem. It's raining again today. Tomorrow it's going to be dry. It's going to be 1,000% humidity. So what I used to do for panels across them while I'm clamping them, I'd get 2 straight boards, clamp them together to flatten the panel. The problem is over time, glue, moisture, humidity, they're gonna warp. So they might last for a while, but you can see these 2 are way out already. It's just not gonna last. Another issue is with doing that, a panel has to be quite a ways off of your work surface. So say if I were to take even a simple screw clamp and then I've got to get one under it, place the other one on top of my panel, position it like that, then get my clamp under here while holding this one up, get this over here, and I need 3 hands to do it. So it's kind of difficult. It's time consuming. And if you've watched any of my other videos or other people's, when you're doing certain panel glue ups, I might have 50 strips in a panel across it. By the time I get all those glued, sandwiched together and get ready to clamp up, the open time of that glue is already starting to close. So I don't have time to be fumbling around with a bunch of, kind of jury rig stuff or complicated panel clamps like the ones I had showed you a little bit ago. So I have set up over here some strips that I'm going to glue up into a panel, and I'm going to show you my solution. So what I wanted to do, I went to my local hardware store and I was thinking, you know what, I'm just going to get a few pieces of metal, something as straight as possible, and use those as my cawls from now on, because I just need them to be flat. And since I'm positioning clamps over the workpiece and now not out over the sides, I'm not too worried about them bowing. So what I found out is, go to the hardware store, 1-inch square tubing. L-shaped tubing or angle iron or channel tubing is never completely straight. And that's just how it's made, the nature of metal. When it's actually extruded or cast, whatever, it's gonna bow. So that's a no-go here. But square tubing is 99% of the time very straight. I mean, it's gonna be within a few thousandths. And so I thought about it. I could just take these, clamp them top to bottom. But then I got home and thought about it. Everybody, if you do any woodworking whatsoever, you have these type of clamps laying around. So different manufacturers, doesn't matter. So this is a Bessey 6-inch. This is a Harbor Freight 6-inch. One of the things I noticed, the heads on here, these ends right here, same thing with Irwin's or other manufacturers, are almost identical in measurements. So I thought about it, I grabbed one of them, and I took that 1-inch bar, and I thought, wait a minute, this section fits into it. So take it a step further, what I thought about is if I cut, whether it's with a Dremel tool or an angle grinder or something, a little spot out here so the head of that fits all the way in there, then I would end up with something like this. So this is the first 2 sets that I made for these, and I'm going to show how I use them here in a moment. So now that I cut out that little spot right there, and actually see if I can get it closer to the camera, you can see on that end of the bar I cut that out using a Dremel and my die grinder. Now in this clamp, you see what's going on there? It sticks out barely on the bottom, but because of how the head's designed, and it works with all 6-inch bar clamps like this, regardless of manufacturer, now I have that straight bar hanging off of the bottom of this. So I took another bar that I'm going to use for the top sections. On the ends, I just cut out a little recess on there, a little channel. So when I stick this over the top of a board, all I have to do is slide this under it. I could take this, I can grab my clamp with this hand, slide this onto the top of the board, up onto that rail right there. So now I have a clamp that I can slide over there, let it rest, and then screw this one down, right? Since it's over the board with this one attached, it'll stay right there. Then I just come to the other end of my panel, put another clamp there over the end of the board, and it perfectly straightens it out. So I'm gonna go and cut this off right here and move over, and we're gonna glue up a panel, and I'm gonna show you how quick I can get a nice straight panel using something like this. And mind you, I spent These two bars right here, you can go to your local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, or even cheaper, order online to get 1-inch square tubing, whatever wall thickness you want. This is actually very thin wall thickness. They'll still fit on these clamps if you go with a thicker wall thickness. And I think for a 6 or 8 foot section of this cost me 20 something bucks, and I'm able to make 3 or 4 sets of these. So all depending on the length you want, up to you. But let's skip over, we'll get on this and glue up this panel, show you how it works. All right, so we got the panel we're gonna glue up right here, which is some curly maple I cut into strips, and I did this on purpose actually. Some of them, these are actually all the exact same height here. There's 15 of them, and they're about 1.5 inches thick. But you could tell, I don't know if you can tell in the video, I'll try to zoom in as I'm doing this if I can, but some of them are a little out of shape. You've got a couple that are 1 millimeter or 2 proud of the rest of them. So the issue with that, if I were to clamp those now, not only do I need to plane everything down, but I'm gonna lose a couple, probably 2 or 3 millimeters on the top, but also the bottom, because now that those are proud, you're gonna have a recess on the bottom. So you're gonna lose a bit of material. So the flatter you can get them, same thing with wide panels, all that, it's less material that's wasted. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these glued up, and we'll get to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward through the actual glue part, and then we'll start using the clamps, and I'll show you how I do them and how simple it is to do this. All right, now we got glue on everything. We've got everything together. Now we need to get everything straightened out, and then lots of pressure to get all that glue squeezed out. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of these. We're gonna set one of these up. So I like to start at one end, apply 2 of these clamps, because then I can get it straight and then work it out straight the rest of the way across. So I'm gonna align one end to my, my pipe clamp over here. Try to get it somewhat straight here, the edge, so I don't waste a lot of material cutting it off. So I got my clamp right there. I'm gonna go ahead and take this one, bottom section, grab one of these clamps, and I always rub a little bit of a glue release agent, which I'll show you what that is here in a bit, to stuff like this in my pipe clamps, because it makes them slide a little bit better across stuff, plus cleanup is so much easier. So now I'm gonna run this one under here, I'm gonna bring this one up to it, as close to this pipe clamp as I can get it. So now I can go ahead and bring this down, tighten this one right here. Now that's secure on there, I can just come on the other end of it here, come up over the panel to this clamp right here. And then tighten that down. So I know I'm straight over here now, but I've got a little bit of bow here that I want to take out before I tighten that one and start adding clamps across. So I'm going to do the same thing again, somewhere probably over here, so I can add a second clamp there. Take another one of these, run it under there. Flatten that out. Here, this one I'm going to put this way. And tighten that down. Now the clamps over here, I can go ahead and tighten these up and draw them in while they're being held straight. That held in place, now I can go ahead and move this one over. Or you could just make an extra set or 2 of these, and they're really cheap, and do them all at the same time. I'm just showing with 2 because trying to keep this project under 20 bucks using clamps that we all already have. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this end one. It's nice being able to get these pipe clamps right up against those so I can get nice pressure at the end of the board there. Now I'm just going to come back, and I always do two sides here because it keeps it straight while it's actually gluing instead of bowing it out of shape. One more. Got my numbers off a little bit here, but you can kind of see the principle. All right, so that's pretty much it. 20 bucks less, actually. So, and since the head ones, these clamps right here, you just put the pads back on them. It doesn't ruin anything. They're just clamps that everybody has, so. And so just those square tubes, I had paint them with the Rust-Oleum appliance epoxy because I find after about a week or so, it's an extremely durable finish. And glue's easy to come off, especially when you use a release agent, such as Bates makes a good one, and it lasts forever. So anyways, that's it. Let me know if you have any comments. I was actually able, if I run my finger across these sections, there's probably like 1/10 of a millimeter of transition in between some of these, the ones that were proud, where the glue lines were. But I could sand that out with a hand sander if I wanted to. It'll still get planed down, but now I only need to take a fraction of what I used to without a fancy panel clamp. So anyways, let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, and have a good one.